The emergency beacon cut through the void of space like a dying scream. Admiral Zephyr's 6 arms trembled as she activated the final recording device aboard the flagship, Dominion's Edge. Behind her, explosions rocked the massive vessel. The bridge crew, what remained of them, worked frantically at their stations. "This is Admiral Zephyr of the Caltharian hegemony," she spoke into the recorder, her voice steady despite the chaos. "If anyone receives this transmission, know this. We underestimated them. We all did." A human fighter craft screamed past the view screen, its primitive fusion engines somehow outmaneuvering their quantum drives. Impossible. Yet it was happening. The humans, they were never supposed to be anything more than another client species, another conquered world in our empire. Zephyr's breathing apparatus wheezed as smoke filled the bridge. But we were wrong, so terribly wrong. The ship lurched violently. Emergency lighting bathed everything in crimson. They didn't defeat us with superior technology. They didn't overwhelm us with numbers. Her voice cracked with something between admiration and terror. They defeated us with something we never understood, something we couldn't quantify or replicate. Another explosion. This one closer. This is how we finally fell to the humans. And may the cosmos forgive us for what we awakened. The transmission ended in static. Chapter 1. The Catalogue of Worlds, 3 months earlier, the Dominion's Edge, hung in the cold vacuum above Earth, like a predator studying its prey. From the observation deck, Admiral Zephyr gazed down at the blue marble below, her compound eyes reflecting the planet's surface through the reinforced viewing ports. "Another backwater world," muttered Commander Vex, his scaly hide shifting from green to amber, a sign of boredom among his kind. "Look at them down there, still burning fossil fuels, still fighting each other over imaginary lines on maps." Zephyr's 4 primary arms folded across her chest while her auxiliary limbs manipulated a data tablet. The planetary assessment scrolled, "Past, primitive technology, fractured governments, no unified space presence. By all measures, Earth should be just another easy conquest for the hegemony. Population 7 billion, she read aloud. No faster-than-light travel, limited orbital infrastructure, military technology roughly equivalent to our historical period 7. She paused, considering. Standard occupation protocol should suffice. Lieutenant. Crace, a young Altarian with crystalline skin that chimed softly when he moved, approached with a detailed analysis. "Ma'am, the full planetary survey is complete. The species calls themselves humans. Carbon-based bilateral symmetry, relatively short-lived, nothing remarkable." "Defense capabilities?" Zephyr asked. "Negligible," Crace replied, his crystal face brightening with confidence. "Nuclear weapons, but primitive delivery systems. Their most advanced fighters use chemical propulsion. We could neutralize their entire military in 6 standard hours." Vex laughed, a sound like grinding stone. 6 hours? I could do it in 3 with a single squadron. But something nagged at Zephyr. In her 40 years of conquest across 17 star systems, she'd learned to trust her instincts. "What about their history, their cultural patterns?" Crace's brightness dimmed slightly. "That's more complex, Admiral. They appear to be unusually resistant to subjugation. Multiple empires have risen and fallen on their world. They have a documented pattern of fighting against overwhelming odds. Every species fights when cornered," Vex dismissed. "Once they see our true power, they'll submit like all the others." Zephyr wasn't convinced. She pulled up historical data on their previous conquests. The Centaurians had surrendered after a single demonstration of their Starkiller weapons. The Vegan Collective had negotiated terms before the first shot was fired. Even the warrior clans of Proxima had yielded when faced with impossible odds. But as she studied the human data streams, their entertainment, their literature, their historical records, a pattern emerged that made her auxiliary limbs twitch with unease. "Tell me, Lieutenant," she said, not looking away from the data. "What do their stories focus on?" Crace seemed puzzled by the question. "Stories, ma'am? Their fictional narratives, their myths, their entertainment. What themes appear most frequently? The young officer consulted his tablet, crystalline fingers dancing across the interface. Well, there seems to be a recurring motif of individuals or small groups overcoming vastly superior forces. They call them underdog stories. Also common are narratives about fighting hopeless battles, last stands, and... He paused, looking uncomfortable. Revenge scenarios. Revenge? Zephyr's compound eyes focused sharply. Yes, ma'am. Many of their most popular narratives involve someone seeking vengeance against those who wronged them. Often these stories end with the complete destruction of the antagonist's power structure. Vex scoffed. Primitive wish fulfillment. Every conquered species dreams of striking back at their betters. But Zephyr was studying something else now. Human military history. Battle after battle where numerically inferior forces had achieved victory through tactics, determination, and what the humans called thinking outside the box. Commander Vex, she said slowly, I want you to run a full tactical simulation. Assume the humans somehow acquire hegemony-level technology. How would they use it? Admiral, that's impossible. They don't have the scientific foundation to humor me. Vex grumbled but activated the tactical computer. The simulation began running scenarios based on human historical patterns, psychological profiles, and strategic thinking. What appeared on the screen made Zephyr's blood run cold. The simulated humans didn't fight like any other species the hegemony had encountered. Instead of massing their forces for conventional battles, they scattered. They used guerrilla tactics on a galactic scale. They targeted supply lines, communication networks, and civilian infrastructure. Most disturbing of all, they seemed willing to sacrifice everything, including their own lives, to achieve victory. This can't be accurate, Vex muttered, his hide shifting to deep purple, a color of confusion and alarm. But Zephyr was remembering something from her academy training. A footnote in a xenobiology course about death-world species. Planets where life evolved under extreme selective pressure. Species from such worlds often developed unusual traits. Enhanced problem-solving abilities, extreme persistence, and a complete lack of survival instincts when protecting their own. Earth, she realized with growing dread, was classified as a class Duthin's death world, one of the most dangerous planetary environments known to support intelligent life. Belay the standard occupation protocol, she ordered. I said belay it. We're going to study them first. I want full surveillance for one standard month before we make any overt moves. Vex turned his full attention to her, his hide now a warning shade of red. Admiral, with respect, the hegemony, Council expects this system to be secured within the standard time frame. We can't delay based on theoretical concerns. Zephyr looked back at the blue planet hanging in space below them. Something was different about this world. She could feel it in the way the ship's sensors couldn't quite penetrate their scattered communication networks, in the way their orbital debris seemed almost deliberately chaotic, in the way they'd managed to survive as a species despite their world trying to kill them at every turn. 1 month, Commander. We observe, we learn. Then we decide how to proceed. What she didn't know was that the humans had already detected them, and they were learning too. Chapter 2. The Art of War Deep. Beneath the Colorado mountains, General Sarah Chen stared at satellite imagery that shouldn't exist. The photographs showed a massive alien vessel hanging in space beyond the moon's orbit, invisible to conventional sensors, but revealed by modifications her team had made to the Hubble telescope. How long have they been there? She asked Dr. Marcus, Webb, the astrophysicist who'd first spotted the anomaly. Based on gravitational fluctuations, at least 3 days, Webb replied, adjusting his glasses nervously. Maybe longer. They're using some kind of stealth technology, but they can't hide their mass signature completely. The Situation Room buzzed with controlled chaos. Military advisors, scientists, and intelligence officers worked at stations throughout the underground facility. President Morrison participated via secure video link from Washington, her face grim on the main screen. General Chen, the president said, what are we looking at here? An alien spacecraft approximately 2 kilometers in length, Chen replied. Unknown technology, unknown intentions. But given its position and stealth capabilities, I think it's safe to assume they're conducting reconnaissance. Reconnaissance for what? That was the question everyone was afraid to ask. Chen had spent her career studying asymmetric warfare, preparing for conflicts where America would face technologically superior enemies. She'd never imagined those enemies might come from another star. Ma'am, based on historical patterns, there are really only two reasons for covert observation of this type. Either they're planning an invasion, or they're deciding whether we're worth invading. The room fell silent except for the hum of computers and air circulation systems. Dr. Webb spoke up. General, there's something else. We've detected similar gravitational anomalies near other major population centers. London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo. They have multiple ships. How many? President Morrison asked. At least 12 that we can identify. Possibly more. The implications were staggering. A coordinated surveillance operation on a global scale meant they were dealing with a spacefaring civilization with resources beyond Earth's current capabilities. Recommendations? The president asked. General Chen had been thinking about this moment since she'd first seen the footage. Ma'am, we have two options. We can try to communicate with them, show them we know they're there, and attempt peaceful contact. Or we can continue to let them think they're undetected and use that time to prepare. Prepare for what? For war. The president leaned forward. General, if their technology is as advanced as it appears, what chance would we have in a direct conflict? In a conventional war? None. Chen's honesty was brutal but necessary. They have faster-than-light travel, advanced stealth, and who knows what else. In a straight fight, they'd annihilate us. Then why are you recommending we prepare for war? Chen walked to a wall display and activated a presentation she'd been developing. Images flashed across the screen. Vietnam, Afghanistan, the American Revolution, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, countless historical examples of inferior forces defeating superior ones. Because we're not going to fight a conventional war, she said. We're going to fight a human war. The presentation continued, showing maps, supply routes, communication networks, and population centers. But these weren't Earth's. They were extrapolated models of how an interstellar empire might operate. If they're watching us, they're learning about our military capabilities, our governments, our obvious strategic targets. But they're not learning about the things that make us dangerous. Which are, Dr. Webb asked, our stubbornness, our creativity, our complete willingness to break every rule of civilized warfare if it means protecting our home. Chen activated another display, this one showing human population distribution. They'll expect us to defend major cities, military bases, government centers. They'll be prepared for our armies, our air forces, our nuclear weapons. But they won't be prepared for 200 million American gun owners. They won't be prepared for every mechanic who can turn a pickup truck into an improvised fighting vehicle. They won't be prepared for farmers who know every back road, hackers who can disrupt communications, or ordinary people who refuse to be conquered. The president was quiet for a long moment. You're talking about turning the entire planet into an insurgency. I'm talking about survival, ma'am. If they wanted to negotiate, they would have announced themselves. If they wanted to study us scientifically, they wouldn't need stealth ships positioned over population centers. They're here to take our world, and our only chance is to make that victory so costly they'll regret ever finding us. Another voice joined the conversation. General Patricia Hayes from the Pentagon. Sarah, what you're proposing would require unprecedented international cooperation. Can we really expect every nation to coordinate on this scale? Chen smiled grimly. General, humans have two natural states, fighting each other and uniting against a common enemy. I think we've just found the ultimate common enemy. Over the next few hours, the plan took shape. Using quantum encrypted communications and existing intelligence networks, every major government on Earth would be briefed on the situation. Military forces would be dispersed and hidden. Critical infrastructure would be hardened or prepared for rapid reconstruction. Most importantly, detailed plans would be distributed for post-invasion resistance operations. But Chen had one more surprise, something she'd been developing in classified programs for years. "Dr. Webb," she said, "tell me more about their stealth technology. Can we reverse engineer it?" "General, we don't even understand the principles involved. It would take decades to—" "That's not what I asked. I asked if we can reverse engineer it. Can we build something that works the same way, even if we don't understand why it works?" Webb looked confused. "I suppose it's theoretically possible. If we could get close enough to take detailed measurements, analyze their energy signatures, maybe we could create a mimetic field generator. But the power requirements alone— would a nuclear reactor be sufficient?" "Well, yes, but then do it. I want stealth technology and I want it in 3 weeks. General, that's impossible." Chen's expression was flat, determined. "Dr. Webb, 3 weeks from now, those aliens are probably going to start killing human beings. I need you to make the impossible happen because impossibility is the only advantage we have." As the meeting broke up and teams scattered to their assignments, Chen remained in the Situation Room, staring at the images of alien ships hanging over Earth. She thought about her daughter in college, her parents in Florida, the millions of people going about their daily lives with no idea that everything was about to change. She thought about the wars she'd studied, the desperate battles fought by people who refused to surrender, even when surrender was the logical choice. The Alamo, Thermopylae, Stalingrad, Custer's last stand. History was full of last stands that ended in defeat but inspired eventual victory. General Chen intended to win the first time. Unknown to her, aboard the Dominion's Edge, Admiral Zephyr was having similar thoughts about impossible victories and the dangerous unpredictability of species that refuse to behave logically. Both commanders were about to discover that humans and aliens had more in common than either suspected, and that would make the coming war far more terrible than anyone imagined. The attack came at dawn local time, across 17 major cities simultaneously. But it wasn't the massive orbital bombardment Admiral Zephyr had planned. Instead, it was something far more surgical and far more terrifying. In New York, the Statue of Liberty simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone, leaving only a perfect spherical void in the water where it had stood. In London, Big Ben stopped existing at precisely 6 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. In Beijing, the Forbidden City disappeared between one moment and the next, and in every case holographic messages appeared in the empty space, broadcast in perfect local languages. People of Earth, we are the Caltharian hegemony. Your world is now under our protection. Surrender your governments, abandon your weapons, accept integration into our empire. You have 24 hours to comply. Resistance will result in the complete elimination of your species. General Chen watched the global feeds from the Situation Room, her face expressionless. Around her, staff officers and advisors struggled to process what they were seeing. "How did they do that?" Dr. Webb whispered, staring at the footage of empty space where national monuments had stood. "Those structures didn't explode or collapse, they just stopped being there." "Matter displacement," Chen said quietly. "They can move objects through space without affecting the surrounding area. Probably the same technology they use for faster-than-light travel." "Jesus," someone muttered. "If they can do that to buildings, what can they do to people?" Chen activated her communications array. "All stations, this is command. Execute Protocol 7 immediately. All personnel to designated positions. This is not a drill." Across the globe, military units began implementing the dispersal plan they'd spent 3 weeks perfecting. Regular forces melted away from obvious targets. Command structures shifted to hidden bunkers and mobile platforms. Most importantly, ordinary citizens began receiving coded messages through social media, emergency broadcasts, and word-of-mouth networks. The real war was about to begin. But first, the aliens would get their answer to the surrender demand. President. Morrison's response was broadcast from an undisclosed location exactly 24 hours after the monuments disappeared. "To the Caltharian hegemony, we have received your ultimatum. This is our response. No, we will not surrender our world. We will not abandon our weapons. We will not accept subjugation. If you want Earth, you'll have to take it from us, and we will make you pay for every inch. The broadcast ended with something the aliens hadn't expected: a detailed analysis of their ship's positions, stealth signatures, and tactical capabilities. Aboard the Dominion's Edge, Admiral Zephyr stared at the human transmission in disbelief. How? Commander Vex's hide had shifted to deep black, a color of shock and fear. How do they know where our ships are positioned? Lieutenant Crace was frantically checking sensor readings. Admiral, they shouldn't be able to detect us. Our stealth fields are operating perfectly. But Zephyr was beginning to understand. The humans hadn't detected their ships directly. They'd detected the gravitational effects, analyzed orbital mechanics, and made educated guesses about probable positions. Then they'd confirmed those guesses by observing which monuments were targeted for the demonstration. They've been studying us, she said quietly. While we were studying them, they were figuring out how we think. The realization was deeply unsettling. No species had ever managed to turn surveillance into counterintelligence before. Every other world had been caught completely off guard by the hegemony's arrival. Admiral, Vex said, recommend we proceed with standard pacification protocols. A few city killers dropped from orbit should convince them to reconsider. No. Zephyr's response was immediate. Look at their response again. They're not behaving like a cornered species. They're behaving like they have a plan. She activated the tactical display showing Earth's surface. According to their sensors, human military forces were gone. Not destroyed, simply no longer concentrated in predictable locations. Where are their armies? She asked. Crace consulted his instruments. Scattered, Admiral. We're detecting small unit signatures across multiple continents, but no major force concentrations. And their governments? Also dispersed. We can't locate any primary command centers. Vex was growing agitated, his hide cycling through several shades of purple. Admiral, this is exactly why we should act now. Destroy their major population centers before they can organize effective resistance. But Zephyr was remembering the tactical simulations she'd run, the ones that had made her uneasy about this world. The humans were implementing exactly the strategy the computer had predicted: disperse, disappear, and make every inch of ground cost the invaders dearly. Commander, how many troops would we need to occupy this planet? For standard pacification? Perhaps 1 million ground forces, standard garrison protocols. And if the entire population resists? Vex paused, considering. That would require significantly more resources. How many more? Potentially all of them. Every soldier in the hegemony. The implications were staggering. The hegemony controlled 17 star systems, but their forces were spread thin, maintaining order across dozens of worlds. If Earth required their entire military just to occupy, they'd have to abandon everything else. Admiral, Crace said urgently, we're receiving another transmission from the planet's surface. This time it wasn't President Morrison, it was General Chen, speaking from an unknown location with maps and tactical displays visible behind her. Admiral Zephyr of the Caltharian hegemony, she began, somehow knowing exactly who she was addressing. I know you're listening. I'm General Sarah Chen, and I'm going to explain how this is going to work. The transmission continued with details that should have been impossible for the humans to know. Troop numbers, ship classifications, even personal information about hegemony commanders. You have 12 ships in orbit around our world, approximately 50,000 personnel across your fleet. Your nearest reinforcements are 6 months away at your maximum FTL speed. You're operating at the far edge of your supply lines, and your empire has commitments on at least 20 other worlds that prevent you from dedicating additional resources to Earth. Chen paused, letting the implications sink in. Now let me tell you what we have. 7 billion angry humans who have spent the last 3 weeks preparing for your arrival. Every major government has agreed to coordinate resistance. Every military force has dispersed to hidden positions. Every civilian has been briefed on asymmetric warfare tactics. The display behind her shifted to show population distribution maps and infrastructure networks. You can destroy our cities, Admiral. You can kill millions of us, but you cannot kill all of us, and every day you remain in our system, We'll be learning more about your technology, your tactics, and your weaknesses. Eventually, we'll find a way to bring down one of your ships. Then we'll reverse engineer your weapons and turn them against you. Chen's expression was calm, professional, terrifying in its complete confidence. So here's our counteroffer. Leave now, and we'll let you go. Stay, and we'll teach you why Deathworld species are called that. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Commander Vex finally spoke. Admiral, surely you're not considering negotiating with these primitives? Zephyr was studying the tactical displays, running calculations in her head. The humans were right about almost everything. Troop numbers, response times, supply limitations. But they'd made one critical error. They assume we need to occupy their world, she said finally. They assume we want to rule them. Don't we? Crace asked. The hegemony needs resources, Lieutenant. Raw materials, energy, sometimes labor. We don't need rebellious populations or devastated infrastructure. She activated the ship's communication array. Perhaps it's time to show them that resistance carries a price. What Admiral Zephyr ordered next would change everything about the war both sides thought they were fighting, and it would teach both humans and aliens that some lines once crossed can never be uncrossed. Chapter 4. The Point of No Return. City of Denver died in 3 seconds. Not from orbital bombardment or massive explosions, but from something far more clinical and horrible. The same matter displacement technology that had removed the monuments was turned against a living city. One moment, 2 million people were going about their morning routines. The next, there was only a perfectly spherical crater where the city had been. General Chen watched the satellite feeds from her mobile command post, her face carved from stone. Around her, staff officers struggled to process what they'd witnessed. My God, Dr. Webb whispered. They just erased them. 2 million people. The global response was immediate and devastating. Not collapse or surrender, as Admiral Zephyr had expected, but something else entirely. Something the Caltharian hegemony had never encountered in 40 years of conquest. Rage. Within hours, human governments across the world made simultaneous announcements. There would be no further negotiations, no surrender, no quarter given or asked. The aliens had just taught humanity what total war meant, and humanity was a very good student. The first strike came 18 hours later. Dr. Webb's team had indeed accomplished the impossible, reverse engineering stealth technology from long-range observations of the alien ships. The power requirements were enormous. Each stealth generator needed a nuclear reactor. But humanity had plenty of both nuclear reactors and people willing to die for their species. The attack ship was crude, barely more than a fusion reactor, a stealth field generator, and 50 tons of weapons-grade plutonium welded together. Its pilot was Captain Maria Santos, a former test pilot who'd volunteered for a mission everyone knew was suicide. Control, this is Revenge 1, Santos transmitted as her ship approached the alien vessel hanging over what had been Denver. Stealth field holding, no sign of detection. The alien ship was beautiful in its way, elegant curves and impossible geometries that spoke of advanced engineering. Santos felt no admiration for its design. She was thinking about her sister who'd been visiting Denver when it disappeared. Revenge 1, you are cleared for final approach. Godspeed, Maria. See you on the other side, Santos replied, and cut the communication. The improvised attack ship struck the hegemony sword amidships at significant fraction of light speed. The nuclear detonation that followed lit up half the North American continent and sent debris raining down across 3 states. When the light faded, the alien vessel was gone. Aboard the Dominion's edge, Admiral Zephyr stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In 4 decades of conquest, the hegemony had never lost a ship to a primitive species. The humans had just destroyed a kilometer-long warship with what appeared to be a suicide bomber. How? Commander Vex's hide had gone white, a color of terror among his people. How did they penetrate our sensors? Stealth technology, Lieutenant Crace reported, his crystalline skin dim with shock. Somehow they've managed to replicate our cloaking fields. Impossible. They don't have the scientific foundation to... Apparently, they don't need the scientific foundation, Zephyr interrupted. They only need the will to die trying. The implications were staggering. If the humans could build stealth ships, they could strike any target in the solar system. More terrifying, they demonstrated a complete willingness to sacrifice themselves in suicide attacks. Admiral, Vex said urgently, we need to evacuate immediately. If they can build one stealth ship, they can build more. But Zephyr was studying something else. Communication intercepts from Earth's surface. The destruction of Denver hadn't broken human resistance. It had unified it in ways she hadn't thought possible. Listen to this, she said, activating a recorded transmission. The voice was General Chen's, but she was addressing the entire world. They think they can break us with terror. They think if they kill enough of us, the survivors will submit. They don't understand what they've done. They've shown us exactly what surrender means. Extinction. So we're going to teach them what fighting a death world species really looks like. The transmission continued with detailed instructions for global resistance operations. But it was the ending that made Zephyr's blood run cold. To every human being listening to this, we are no longer fighting for our governments, our countries, or our way of life. We are fighting for the right to exist. This is a species war now, and there are only two possible outcomes: victory or extinction. Since they've made extinction the only alternative to victory, we're going to win. Admiral, Crace said softly, we're receiving reports from other systems. Similar attacks on our facilities on Proxima, Vega, and Altair. Somehow they've managed to coordinate strikes across multiple star systems. That's impossible. They don't have FTL capability. No, but they have quantum communication technology. They've been coordinating with human colonies we didn't know existed. The full scope of the disaster was becoming clear. The humans hadn't just been on Earth. They'd been slowly, quietly spreading across nearby star systems for decades. And now every human settlement, every hidden colony, every research outpost was turning into a potential attack base. How many? Zephyr asked. Unknown, Admiral. Possibly hundreds of hidden installations across a dozen systems. Commander Vex's hide was cycling through colors rapidly, a sign of panic. Admiral, we need to contact the Hegemony Council immediately. Request, full fleet support. This situation is completely beyond our control. But Zephyr was thinking about something else General Chen had said in her transmission. Since they've made extinction the only alternative to victory, we're going to win. The humans were right. By destroying Denver, the hegemony had removed any possibility of negotiated settlement. They'd made this a war of extinction, and species wars followed different rules than political conflicts. Sir, Lieutenant Crace announced, we're detecting multiple stealth signatures approaching our position. At least 12 ships, possibly more. Through the viewports, Earth hung below them like a blue marble, beautiful and serene. But Zephyr knew that every human being on that world was now focused on a single goal: killing every alien in their solar system. All ships, prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace, she ordered. We're evacuating the system. Admiral, the Council, will demand an explanation for abandoning a conquest operation. Zephyr looked at her reflection in the viewport, seeing her own compound eyes staring back. In those eyes, she saw something she'd never seen before in 40 years of military service. Fear. I'll tell them the truth, Commander. We attacked a death world species and turned them into our enemies. Now we need to prepare for the consequences. As the hegemony fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the solar system behind, none of them noticed the small, stealthed human ships that followed them into FTL. Ships with quantum communicators, advanced sensors, and crews willing to die to discover the location of alien homeworlds. The war was just beginning, and both sides were about to learn that some conflicts can only end with the complete destruction of one species or the other. Humanity had chosen which species that would be. Epilogue: The New Paradigm. From the personal log of Admiral Zephyr, recorded aboard the refugee ship Final Hope, 18 months after first contact with Earth. They found us 3 months ago. I don't know how they tracked us to the Caltharian homeworld. Our intelligence suggests they use some combination of captured navigation data and pure determination, following our fleet's hyperspace signature across 60 light-years of space. Attack came at dawn local time. Hundreds of human ships, all built using our own technology but modified in ways we never imagined. They didn't try to conquer our worlds. They sterilized them, planet after planet reduced to molten slag. Orbital stations vaporized, fleet bases destroyed. In 3 days of fighting, they dismantled an empire that had taken us 4 centuries to build. We keep asking ourselves how this happened, how a primitive species managed to defeat a galactic superpower. The answer is simple, though we didn't understand it until too late. They never fought us like a primitive species. From the beginning, they fought us like equals. They studied our technology, reverse-engineered our capabilities, and turned our own advantages against us. More importantly, they understood something we didn't. That in a species war, the side willing to sacrifice more usually wins. We thought we were conducting a standard conquest operation. They treated it as a fight for survival from day one. The official military analysis blames intelligence failures, resource limitations, and tactical errors. But I know the real reason we lost. We lost because we never understood what we were fighting. We saw them as another primitive world to be cataloged and conquered. They saw us as an existential threat to be eliminated. We fought to expand our empire. They fought to save their species. We followed the rules of civilized warfare. They made up new rules as they went along. Most importantly, we expected them to behave rationally, to surrender when defeat was inevitable, to negotiate when the costs became too high. But they never behaved rationally. They behaved like humans. The few survivors of our species are scattered across a dozen refugee ships, heading for the outer rim of the galaxy. The humans have made it clear that any Caltharian found in hegemony space will be eliminated on sight. They've also announced their intention to hunt down every member species of our former empire to ensure that no one can rebuild what we created. They call it species security. We call it genocide. But after what we did to Denver, after what we tried to do to their entire world, we have no moral authority to complain about their methods. I've spent the last few months analyzing their tactics, trying to understand how they achieved the impossible. The answer isn't in their technology or their strategy. It's in something far more fundamental. They never accepted that they couldn't win. Every other species we conquered understood that resistance was futile when faced with overwhelming force. The humans rejected that premise entirely. They decided they were going to win, and then they figured out how to make it happen. They turned our strength into weakness, our advantages into vulnerabilities. Most importantly, they made us afraid, something no primitive species had ever accomplished. By the time we realized what we were dealing with, it was too late to change course. We'd already committed to a war of extinction, and extinction wars have only one possible outcome. Today I received intelligence that human fleets have been spotted near vegan space, moving to pacify our former client species. They're not content with just defeating us. They're systematically eliminating every trace of our empire, ensuring that nothing like the hegemony can ever rise again. They've become exactly what they accused us of being, an existential threat to every other species in the galaxy. The difference is that they're very, very good at it. My final log entry, recorded as our refugee ship enters the void between galaxies. If any other species receives this transmission, learn from our mistakes. If you encounter the humans, do not underestimate them. Do not threaten them. Do not attempt to conquer them. And whatever you do, never make them choose between surrender and extinction. They will choose extinction every time, but not their own. End. Your final transmission received from Caltharian space, before the region went permanently silent. This is General Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force, broadcasting to all spacefaring civilizations. The Caltharian hegemony no longer exists. Their empire has been dissolved, their fleets destroyed, their worlds pacified. This action was taken in response to their attempted genocide of the human species. Let this serve as notice to the galaxy. Humanity will not be conquered, enslaved, or eliminated. Any species that attempts to threaten our existence will face the same fate as the Caltharians. However, we are not monsters. We seek peaceful coexistence with all civilizations that respect our sovereignty. Trade, cultural exchange, and mutual cooperation are not only possible, but encouraged. We have much to offer the galactic community, and much to learn from it. The choice is yours. Meet us as equals, and we will be your allies. Threaten us as the Caltharians did, and we will be your ending. This is humanity's first and final warning. Choose wisely. Transmission ends. Author's note. The above account was compiled from recovered Caltharian records, human military archives, and intercepted communications from the period known as the First Species War. While some details remain classified, the essential facts are not in dispute. The conflict lasted 18 months from first contact to the final pacification of Caltharian space. Human casualties totaled approximately 12 million, including the complete loss of Denver and subsequent military actions. Alien casualties are estimated in the billions across 17 star systems. The technological advances achieved during this period, including reverse-engineered FTL drives, stealth technology, and quantum communication networks, accelerated human development by an estimated 200 years. These innovations formed the foundation of humanity's current interstellar civilization. More significantly, the war established humanity's reputation throughout the galaxy. In the 50 years since the conflict ended, no spacefaring species has attempted to conquer human space. Several have requested defensive alliances. The Caltharian refugees were eventually granted sanctuary in the Andromeda Galaxy, where they established a small but peaceful colony. Admiral Zephyr's final logs became required reading at human military academies, serving as a reminder of both the costs of war and the dangers of underestimating any species fighting for survival. Today, human colonies span hundreds of star systems, and Terra remains the unofficial diplomatic center for a dozen alien civilizations. The motto adopted by the Terran Defense Force after the war reflects humanity's approach to interstellar relations: peace through superior firepower, friendship through mutual respect. As General Chen noted in her final report on the conflict, "We didn't start this war, but we finished it. Now we have to live with what we became in the process. The galaxy is watching to see whether we can be trusted with the power we've taken. I believe we can. I have to believe that because the alternative is too terrible to consider." The war that began with humanity's discovery that they were not alone in the universe ended with the universe's discovery that humanity would not be ignored, conquered, or eliminated. Whether this represents humanity's greatest triumph or greatest tragedy remains a subject of debate among historians. What is not debatable is the outcome. Humanity survived, thrived, and in doing so, changed the fundamental balance of power in the galaxy forever. Some call it humanity's finest hour. Others call it the day the galaxy learned to fear a species from a small blue world on the edge of nowhere. Perhaps both perspectives are correct. Perhaps that's what makes us human. The end.